So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, October the 27th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581 and press 1. And that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart. Welcome, everybody. Honored that you're here with us, and we get to move into this conversation once again about understanding the process of forgiveness. I've asked everyone to hold the space. I have a friend, this is a Unity minister. He first actually touched his work back in I guess it's the late 80s, down in Palm Beach, Florida. He was an attorney there, and as a result of coming to a series of workshops I did at Unity of Palm Beaches, he became a Unity minister. And I just got a note from him this morning and spent an hour on the phone with him after hearing from him. He's on his way to see his physician. And was dropping me a note to say goodbye, that he was probably leaving his body today. And so we had a good conversation. They actually had ears that were much bigger to hear this work than he has in the, 40 or so years that he's been involved in it, or at least has touched in around the edges of it. But if you would, I'd just ask you to hold a space of love and healing being the healing of his into being, whether his body heals or not, which he may still do. He heard on a whole other level the possibilities. So, John, we hold a space for you and just ask everybody that's listening to just send love in the direction. Just tap in through his vibrations, the vibration of his name, John Considine. The universe knows how to get the energy to him. We hold you in our hearts, John, and send you our deepest blessings and love. So I invite you to breathe with me and breathe with John. It's interesting to talk to someone who's on in that stage on their journey, and certainly an honor to be one of the people that he contacted to have a conversation with. Should he choose to drop his body, and should he choose to do his next piece of work, all the space that he moves into deeper contact with the truth of who he is as he leaves his body behind, if that's what he does. Breathing with you, my friend. And we invite you into this conversation to have big ears, ready and willing to hear and apply everything that's possible to apply from the first century Aramaic teaching to this man, Yeshua. Everything we're doing has been decoded from his work. If you think, and I've had several people say, Michael, what a genius piece of work you've done to put that together. It's like, no, it's not a reflection of my genius. I put it together, but I was not the one who came to the point of understanding and the how to use the direct use of the tools. So all of the honor and thanks for that goes to the man Yeshua. The brilliance of this physicist, this physiologist, this geneticist, this psychologist is absolutely astounding when you meet him in his native Aramaic language. Now, you meet him through the Greeks, and, he sounds like a Greek. In fact, if he sat in most so-called churches today, he'd say, that's all great to me, because that's what most of so-called Christianity is teaching in the name of this man, Yeshua, teaching Greek philosophy. Gods that murder their own children, oh yes, create horrible places for people to go. If you haven't met the Creator yet, meet Him. Choose to meet Him through Yeshua. You'll notice that He calls the Creator our Father, not His Father, our Father. And He gives us the attributes of the Creator. Love, period. Someone whose good pleasure it is to take us into, the Greeks translated as the kingdom, but actually in Aramaic, those words that have been translated as the kingdom of God actually translate to community of love. Good pleasure to give it to us. And it's been given to us from minute one. One of the things that I took John through, he has a very dear daughter who's, Jeannie, we're out in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, speaking at Unity there just shortly after his daughter was born. And I think she's now 16, maybe 15. So that's how long it's been since we've been in Coeur d'Alene. But he was able to very deeply, when he asked me, he put forward the question, well, what is God anyway? He says, that's something I've worked on all my life. Well, I can't give you an answer to that. You could pile all the words in the English language, the Spanish, the German, the Russian, Yiddish. You could put them all together and you won't find the definition. But hold a newborn child. Tap into the essence of that newborn, and he has a daughter that he cherishes very deeply, and was very quickly able to go back to the moment where he first held her. And such a clear response was that her essence was love. And then when I asked the question, so John, when you tapped into her essence, is she loving you or is she love? And it's just so clear, she is love. So there's God. There, you got a definition now. If you want to know what the Creator is, hold a newborn. Tap into the essence of the newborn. And recognize that our essence is the same. And that we live in a culture that has become masterful. The most cherishing, so-called loving parents are masters at ripping the child out of the experience of themselves as love. They're driving them deeply into insecurity, self-loathing, rage, and fear. And the return to the truth of who we are means that we need to face those moments. And most everyone, when they get down to the brass tacks of it, go back to the most deeply painful moments, and there you find, right there with them, a parent who is not able to function as love themselves. And there's where the offense begins. They talk about you've done something to offend God. God has never been offended. That's just silliness. Love could not be offended. But can we engage in an energy that's other than love and lose our connection to love, break our connection to love? Yeah, we've all done it. And we do that by engaging in energetic patterns that never belonged within us. Those energetic patterns in Aramaic were called sin. Sin, an archery term in Aramaic that simply means off the mark. When you were on the archery range and fired the bullseye and you missed the bullseye, the scorekeeper yelled sin. You're off the mark. How do we find ourselves in hell? We find ourselves in hell by forgetting who we are, by buying into sadness and rage and fear and guilt and pain and drama and trauma. And those energetic patterns are stored right there in our physiology, and our physiology becomes hell. So, if you want to get out of hell, we recently, on the show, I guess a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the film Gandhi. So we went out and pulled the movie out and watched it. And there's a particularly powerful scene. Gandhi, he's sworn to fast to death if he has to stop the violence that he's become a part of by working to rid India of the British Empire. And there's conflict between the Muslims and the Hindus. And he's laying on his deathbed. He's laying, he can just breathe. He's on his way out, and this wild-eyed Hindu man comes up to the room where he is, and he's got a piece of bread, and he throws it at Gandhi. He says, "Here, eat. I don't want your death on my conscience." Gandhi looks at him like, "Well, what's going on with you, bud?" He said, "I'm going to go to hell." And Gandhi says, "Why? Why do you believe that?" He said, "Today I killed a child. I picked a child up and I smashed its head against a wall and I killed him. Why would you do such a thing? Because they killed my son." And Gandhi looks at him, and Gandhi can hardly speak at this point. And the actor that plays Gandhi in that film is so powerfully amazing in it. And Gandhi says, "I know a way out of hell." The man looks at him, and he's like, he's just wild-eyed, crazy looking. He says, "I know a way out of hell." And he raises his hand up, and when the man told him he killed a child, he showed him how tall his son was. He said, "They killed my son." And Gandhi raises his hand to that level. He says, "Go and find a Muslim boy about this tall and raise him in love, but raise him as a Muslim." So he's talking to a Hindu man. And there's this hate between the Hindus and the Muslim at that stage. He says, "Raise him as a Muslim, and you'll find your way out of hell." What does one have to do to find their way out of hell? And your hell might be the person next door, or the government, or your spouse, or your child, or your parent, or the guy down the way, whatever it is. There's a way out. And the way out is to raise yourself as a human being, to choose to function as you were designed to function, as conscious, active, present love, which means that you're going to have to face everything in you that's unlike that. Everything has been born and bred in you through the generations, everything based in hostility or fear, everything that could possibly take you out of the truth about you as love. It's going to surface in you. It's going to be seen. It's going to be felt. It's going to have to be dealt with. It's not Dr. Feelgood. It's not easy. And so our reading comes from chapter 24 in Why Is This Happening to Me Again, on healing crisis. And we're looking at what the healing process looks like. So I've just told Richard that if you're going to go into release mode, as he's done, we're getting close to the end of our conversation. We've been having this conversation now with Richard for almost a year. We've got, this is the 1st of November pretty much, so we've got 2 more months of conversation out of 12. And we've gone through many healing crises with Richard. He's looked at many different levels of rage and hatred, and really stepped into some deep process work. And so I move forward to explain what that means. Healing crises are usually, we're on page 135 if you're following this in the book. Healing crises are usually experienced on 3 levels. When an energy goes into the human system, it creates symptoms. When these symptoms of a degenerative energy are suppressed, as with the use of drugs, they do not leave the system but are driven deep down into tissue. This happens whether the suppressed energy is physical, mental, or emotional. Symptomatically, each release of old disease energies is experienced and felt in the same way, with the same intensity as when they entered the system as disease. Willingness is the cosmic grease that accelerates and eases the process of release. On a physical level, As the energy releases, it looks like old physical symptoms and low energy. On the mental level, release looks like any kind of negative thought. And on the emotional level, it feels like any old feeling that has ever been suppressed. Release can also put in its appearance as depression. These are all desirable states, Richard. Right, Michael. Richard rolls his eyes. In the past, I would have accused you of being crazy, but I'm really starting to hear you with different ears. It's a strange sensation, finding myself saying, I'm willing to purposely experience pain. I have one problem, though. If I'm going to experience all these symptoms, how will I know if I'm in one of those healing crises or if I'm sick? Ultimately, you must be in touch with what is going on in your system and make the determination for yourself as to the nature of your symptoms. There are 3 signals. And actually, there's a 4th one that I've learned of since I wrote the books that I've come to understand on a new level. So there's 3 signals that can assist you in determining whether or not your symptoms are healing in process. Number 1, first, you've reached a new level of vitality. Number 2, second, you're doing your inner work and more of the right things. Third, there's an increase in elimination. Any or all of the eliminative channels, the skin, the lungs, the bowel, the bladder, mucous membranes, all increase their output. So in a healing process, there will be the expression symptomatically of the energy that's been locked down and shoved out of sight coming back into view and expressing through our physiology. So, again, on a physical level, it's any kind of physical symptom you've ever had. Anywhere in the body, wherever there's been a hurt or a pain, a trauma, an accident, being struck, whatever it is. As you go into the healing process, you're going to go back through and process that level of energy. On a mental level, it's any kind of negative thought, and actually confusion. So if you find yourself confused, confusion is a very high state compared to thinking you know when you don't have a clue. So when you undo conflicting energetic patterns, thoughts are frequencies much like light energy is. So, I'll use an example. Let's imagine I've got a whiteboard in front of me and I shine a red light, a blue light, and a green light on the whiteboard. Each of the 3 in a different place on the board, and I have clarity. I see clearly the color red. I see clearly the color blue. I see clearly the color white. Or green. Not going to see white on a whiteboard. But I see each of the... Now, we understand scientifically there's no such thing as red, blue, or green. Scientifically, each is a frequency the brain interprets. Red is red, blue is blue, green is green, except in people who are colorblind who don't interpret those frequencies the same way. We say, oh, that person actually doesn't see green. Their brain doesn't interpret that frequency as green. That's the person who's colorblind. They have to be very careful and watch the lights because and realize the green one's at the top. The red one's at the bottom, or green one's at the bottom, red one's at the top, wherever you are in the world. So, frequencies. Now, let's imagine that I took the red light, the blue light, and the green light, and I shone them all in the same spot on the whiteboard. Will I have clarity on either red, blue, or green? No. Those energetic patterns of light are additive and subtractive with each other. They mix with each other, and so I get some kind of a combination of red, blue, and green. Thoughts work the same way. If I have an old rage thought that I'm convinced is absolutely true about somebody else other than myself, and you bring to me a true thought based in love, when those 2 energies mix in the mind, They become confused with each other. They become interlacing with each other, just like the red, the blue, and the green. Frequencies, literally the energetic patterns of those frequencies, become interactive with each other and mix, and that's called confusion. Confusion is a necessary state in the healing process. And as you undo every frequency within you from every generation, and you keep bringing truth in as you allow those conflicting thoughts to come forward, confusion is going to be a part of the process. And again, on an emotional level, any kind of negative feeling you've ever had in depression, that's what healing looks like. And the idea is when you recognize you're there, instead of getting lost in the old thought patterns again, you stay connected to the higher energy. There was a psychologist that wrote a poem about that. It went like this: as you travel through life, no matter what's your goal, keep your eye upon the donut and not upon the hole. If you keep focused on the negative thought, then you'll keep reinforcing the negative thought. If you bring in a higher, more connected, more loving thought, the lower, disconnected thought in hostility or fear is going to start to move. If you lose your awareness in that negative thought, then you'll tend to go back and do the same thing again. So you need to be aware and stay connected to the higher. You'll notice that, many times when we're processing with someone, we might go round and round and round the same issue and sort out thought disorder after thought disorder after thought disorder. And as you stay connected to the higher, we spoke yesterday, and if you weren't on the show, make a note, take the time to get on Netflix and watch the movie Self-Made. A very powerful picture of a young African-American woman back in the 1800s who became the world's first, or the country's first, self-made female African-American millionaire back in the 1800s into the early 1900s. True story, and it's a beautiful portrayal of someone committed to a higher thought and having to work through everything less than that. In her personal life, in her financial life, in her business life, every aspect. It's a very powerful portrayal of someone committed to working through everything and putting one foot in front of the other and moving forward. Very inspirational, very powerful when you understand what you're looking at. All you watch this woman do is clean up thought disorder after thought disorder after thought disorder. And it's our thought disorders, I offer literally, that kill us. Because when you put in a thought based in hostility or fear, you're putting in an actual energy to your structure, to your cells. The cell biologists are now showing us in the laboratory that when you think a thought, that thought produces an actual molecule in your body. And that molecule, called a neuropeptide, circulates around in your structure until it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches. It lands on the receptor site, and it inserts itself in the cell. Literally, the neuropeptide, the vibratory pattern of the neuropeptide, inserts itself into the cell. And if you were inside the cell watching as that neuropeptide was inserted, you would say, oh, look at this chemistry coming into the cell. Look at the chemistry of the cell changing. And if the chemistry is of a disintegrative nature, that cell is now in a disease condition. Healing crisis means I'm going to pull that chemistry back out, decode the thought behind it, and literally expose it to love and dissolve it. That's healing crisis. That's the healing process. And then the fourth thing that will tell you when you're in a healing process and you know that your symptoms are healing and it's not time to run out and get yourself a drug. Fourth thing is that you will crave, in the healing process, you will crave the drugs you used to shut down and suppress your pain back in the original events where the disease process occurred. best example I've got of that, and many of you were probably on the show back, and this probably goes back, Jeannie, I'm not sure, was it maybe 5 years ago? There was a young woman who was a natural practitioner. She actually wrote a couple of books that we carry on our tape table on naturopathy, and she had started doing this work way back, 30 some years ago, and gotten away from it and came back to it several years ago. And she was on the radio show a lot back then. I mean, almost every day. She actually did the food for us in one of our intensives. Called me one day, and she was someone who's very naturally oriented, and eating something like sugar and dairy were just not part of her routine. She was very naturally oriented, fresh and raw food. That was her thing. And she called me one day and she said, Michael, I don't know what's going on. I just can't help myself. I'm eating ice cream, like I'm just eating. And, in a naturopathic world, molecules of a fluid from the body of a cow that are designed to cause the body of a calf to grow from 60 or 80 pounds to 1,000 pounds within a year don't belong within the human system. So it's not something she would even think about doing, but all of a sudden she found herself doing that. She's like, Michael, I'm confused. I don't get it. I don't know what's going on. And so I started asking her, well, what are you working on? What are your worksheets about? She said, well, I'm working on some old stuff with my dad. Her dad was Middle Eastern and treated her like a lot of Middle Eastern men treat women, very degrading. I said, well, what did your dad used to do? I know you've also shared with me the way your father cherished you. What would happen when there was a big conflict and he'd been abusive with you? Bingo. I mean, the lights just went off. Oh, I got it. He would take me out for ice cream. So here she is working around those issues with her dad. And literally, when we use an anesthetic, something like sugar and the congestive, all that cow's products can do in the body is create congestion. They are not molecules that are designed for the human body. I mean, great for a cow's body. They're not designed for the human body. And so when you use something that congests the system or anesthetizes the system the way sugar does, and you start to reopen that part of the energy system that contains those old energetic dynamics, there are actual energy signatures, if not molecules, still in the structure that represent the old drug that was used. Her drug was ice cream. She was finished with ice cream at that. I mean, it was only an instant. It was like, oh, God, I got it. And her craving for ice cream was gone. If you use alcohol, we've all heard about the person who was a drunk at one time in their life. They got on the wagon, they quit drinking, they've been sober for 30 years, and all of a sudden we hear that one day, 30 years later, they fall off the wagon. What happened? They just got their 30-year chip yesterday. Why did they fall off the wagon? Well, celebration time. All these people giving them accolades, praising them, new level of vitality, friends, upliftment. And what happens in an uplifted state? That which I could not process yesterday because I didn't have the vitality to, I can now process and work through. And I start to move that energy out of my system. Healing crisis, healing process. So the fourth thing you can put on your list is a craving for the drug you used. If you use some sort of drug, and that could be food or caffeine or nicotine, it could be anything. I mean, in this work, we define a drug as drugging oneself. Compulsive use of any person, place, circumstance, substance, or activity to keep from feeling and dealing with what's going on in you, or to keep from hearing and following your highest guidance. That's addiction. And so as you process through what you need to process through, anything you've ever used addictively will tend to be right there in your face. And if you're aware of it, you can go, oh, I'm in a healing crisis, rather than let it grab you by the face and lead you back into and have you falling off the wagon. So that's the process of healing. So my offering to Richard in this case is, if your answer to all three of these signals is yes, are you at a new level of vitality? Have you been doing more and more of the right things? Is there an increase in elimination? What's happening with your eliminative channels? Are they letting loose of more and more waste? And are you craving old drugs? If they're yes, when you're symptomatic, you're likely in a healing crisis, and it's time to use the tools. Rest, and remember the cosmic grease, be willing. The key thought that closes out this chapter, it was just a short chapter. When in pain, you have two choices. One is healing. Any other choice, no matter what it is, leaves you in your pain. So you have the opportunity when you're in a symptomatic state, as a result of doing the right things, experiencing what's moving in your structure, as you step into that next higher state, you get to move through what never belonged in your structure. And you're in a healing process, or what in naturopathic medicine is called a healing crisis. So I hope it helps to be able to understand that. And tomorrow we'll step into waking from the has-been, recognizing that, everything that the mind constructs via perception, it constructs out of the past. And if it's from the past, dead. If you live in it, you're dead. You remember Yeshua said, let the dead bury the dead, let the blind lead the blind. We're here to step into a different state. And that is to really, truly experience life through the truth of who we are as active, present love. So honored and delighted that you're here to be part of the conversation. Ms. Jeannie, do we have anything happening in the chat room, or anybody on the switchboard with a hand up, a thought for us?
No, it is all quiet. We have several people out there, but nobody has a hand up. So if someone presses one, you're first in line. We have 26 minutes.
If you're out there and you've been through a healing crisis and recognized it, if you're up to it, up for it, it can be very powerful to offer support. And so if you're out there with a story about it or a question about it, put a hand up. Push one. Jeannie?
We got a hand up.
Oh,
area
cool.
Area code 484. You're on the air. Is this Ellen?
Yes, it is. Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Michael.
Welcome, young lady. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you. I'm calling because I feel like I know I'm in the middle of a great healing opportunity. I've been going through a lot the last month, and it relates to having one of my cats disappear.
Ouch.
And so it's like there's what I've been really struggling with is, and I have already gained so much insight through through this whole process and seen all these parallels between things in the past and what's going on now, and finding the thoughts that I really need to let go of. And I'm still like, every time I think, okay, I start feeling better, and then it's like I just don't seem to be able to let go of this cat, and the thought that he might need me, and that if I something in me is telling me you just need to let him go, and then there's another part of me that says, yeah, but and I know it's because I was in this position as a child. What if he needs help, and I just stop even looking for him?
Well, here would be my offering, Ellen, and that is, are you in your highest intuitive, healing, capable self when you're in some form of hostility or fear or degraded energy, or when you are totally connected to love and being? Which state would you call your highest?
Oh, obviously when I'm connected to love.
If your cat needs support and therefore needs your intuition to tap into where he is, what's going on with him, how you can support him, perhaps in mind only, or perhaps actually show up in his physical presence, which state would you have the highest guidance to be able to get that together and offer that support?
Yeah, I obviously in my that love state, and this is what has been going on with me. I get myself there, and I'm always, because I have his flyers that I put up. I have some in my house, and so I see his picture all the time, and I'm always just affirming how much I love him, sending him my love, picturing him being well, and just trying to connect with him. And I can get myself in a really good space with it and really trust that he's exactly where he's supposed to be right now, and that everything is going to work out just perfectly, even though I have no idea, what that looks like, but just trust that. And I'll be okay for maybe 2 or 3 days, and then I get a message from someone, because of course I posted him on all the social media as missing. I'll get a message, oh, I saw your cat today, and then I go into this process of getting my hopes up, and then nothing comes of it, and feeling I just keep crashing. And then I have to work my way back up into that good place. And then
I hear you.
It's been really
powerful. So when I listen to what you've shared with us so far, here's my input. Here's what I hear. I hear that you cherish this animal, and when you get into a really connected space, you're there, you can hold that space, but it brings you to a thought disorder you learned at a time when you needed help and somebody wasn't there for you.
Exactly.
And your healing crisis looks like you working through the thought disorders you learned. I don't know what age you were when that event happened. You might have been 2 or 4 or 10, I don't know. But you took on thought disorders, and they keep dragging you back into the pit.
Yes.
So what's the thought?
There's actually 2. One is from when I was a child, and I was in a position where I needed help and wasn't getting it. And then the other is actually kind of almost on the other side of that, where because I do feel like if I give up on him, like I'm abandoning him. And so the other side of it is that, because I know obviously I didn't abandon this animal, he just disappeared, right? But I was shown a past life experience a couple years ago in which I abandoned my baby. And I was realizing yesterday that the thoughts I'm having about him now, like, where is he? How is he? Like, these are the things that I feel like so much desperation around, that I must have been having those same exact feelings back in that lifetime about my baby that I abandoned. So I see see 2 different real opportunities for me in this that need healing. Yes.
Yeah. Nice work being able to be conscious of that. So then what forgiveness looks like, let's take the context of the early childhood experience where you needed help and there was nobody there for you. And remembering that the forgiveness process looks like when I have a construct in my mind, perceptual construct that's based in some form of thought disorder, some form of hostility or fear, The thing that activates that is a goal. Okay, there's a powerful line in the Course in Miracles that says, perception is a skill made up by us to take the place of what the Creator gave us in creation. So the Creator gave us a life and an experience, and we made up perception. We made up these constructs based in thought disorders. These constructs are reflections of thought disorders. So the thought disorder that you took on, my offering, what I hear, the closest I hear it in that early childhood experience is that nobody's there for me.
Yep.
Or, and there may be several variations on the theme, I need help and there's no help.
Yes. I
so what
can't
forgiveness would...
I'm helpless.
Right.
No one, is there to help me. Yeah, all
hopeless.
Those.
Yeah. So you might have several worksheets to do around that. So I'd start looking at, seeing as how that's what's coming up in this situation, you go back and you start looking at, so my first worksheet would be, I'd really like somebody to just be there for me. And maybe there's a lot of, and with the animal missing, very likely there's grief. And the grief would be a reflection of the energy taken on in that early childhood experience where I just wanted somebody to be there for me and there wasn't anybody. And the grief and the loss.
Exactly.
And the, perhaps self-deprecation would be what you'd need to process through. So let's cancel the goal. How about, I cancel the goal and think of yourself in that situation as a child. I cancel the goal to have somebody be there for me. I was just going ahead and doing that.
Yeah, well, what comes up is that I can't do it on my own.
Okay. So then the next step, and this would be, when they said to Yeshua, how many darn worksheets do we have to do? Is 7 enough? In Aramaic, he said, no, 77 times 70. So there might be several. So that would be the first, and I'd sit down. This sounds like it's really core stuff and important enough to sit down and do each of these worksheets in writing. So the first one would be the desire for someone to be there for me. And then, what's my next worksheet? Oh, well, surfaced as you canceled that goal is the thought disorder, I can't do it on my own. So what would the goal be there? The goal would be to be able to do this, whatever the situation was, to be able to handle it.
There's the key word.
There it is.
The key
so
word.
the next,
very big, because I started having all these issues with my hands, and when I really cued in on it, what came to me are these two phrases. The one was, I can't handle it, and the other one, I forget what the other one was right now, but it was like, but I say that to myself like a lot, and so I catch myself now every time that thought starts coming in, and I say, I can handle it, I can handle it, I can.
But you see, when I try to kid myself, when I try to be in what I call, it's called a disorder or at least a disease that I call premature positive thinking. I can't. But if I'm trying to plaster over a thought disorder that says I can't, then I'm trying to cover the pit that I need to clean out with a positive thought that isn't true at this moment. Or it may actually be true. Gee, here I am. It's now 30 years later. I can do it. But if I still plaster over the thought disorder that I can't, then that thought disorder is like an infection that's going to fester and impact. Did I hear you say you're having trouble with your hands?
Yes.
What's happening?
It's like the circulation. Well, when I go to sleep at night, and this has been going on for years, when I go to sleep at night, they totally fall asleep. It's like I lose all circulation. And I have trouble like trying to put them in position. I'm always constantly changing waking up because they've fallen asleep and trying to move into position where they wake up again and then.
Right.
Yeah.
So then
the next worksheet would look like, I cancel my need to be able to handle this. I cancel my need to have the skills, or it might be I don't have the knowledge, or maybe I'm not smart enough, or I'm not capable, whatever. Ferret out and look for exactly what the goal is in that situation that, you know, and the essence of it at this point would be, I need to be able to handle this. So I cancel my need to be able to handle this. And what happens, remember, when you cancel a goal, let's go back again to that thought from the Course. Perception is a skill made up by us to take the place of what the Creator gave us in creation. So the Creator gave you full power. But if I buy a thought disorder that says I can't handle this, then with that thought disorder, I shut down through my own beliefs that part of my power. It's there. I just lock it away from myself. I put it away in a drawer, and I dissociate from it, so it's no longer mine. Right. The way I open that up again is to cancel the need. It seems backward, but by canceling the need, what happens is that perceptual construct that's coming from some deep unconscious place in my tissue structure, in this case, literally physiologically, your hands, that's the part of your mind this thought disorder is stored in, you're noticing. When I cancel my need to handle it, that perceptual construct and all the pain that it holds collapses in on itself. And when it collapses in on itself, I can now literally capture the neuropeptides out of the tissue, pull them out of the tissue, decode them. Oh, maybe when I cancel the need to be able to handle this, I'm going to come to awareness that, well, if I don't handle this, I'm going to die.
Well, that's how I felt.
Or I'm going to be okay. So that would be the next thought disorder. So now, what's the goal when that comes? Say again.
I was going to say, in fact, I mean, I think it was like, I don't know, something in me finally like made the decision that I must find a way to stop feeling these feelings that I can't handle, or else I'm going to be in a mental institution and locked away and maybe lobotomized, or I was just terrified that if I didn't find a way to handle this, that something really bad, like I may not survive. So somehow a part of me shut down my whole thing.
So we want to open that back up again. You're not going to find any happy stuff in there probably. This is not going to be a Dr. Feelgood process as we're talking about. The healing crisis isn't going to be fun. But as you cancel your goal, literally in this case, I cancel my need to survive in this situation. That's when the perception based on the thought disorder of I'm not going to survive this collapses in on itself. Now I can take the death thought. I can allow the death thought that's in my unconscious, stored literally in my hands, to open, breathe in the presence of it, expose it to love, and dissolve it. Not have to carry that around in my tissue structure any longer.
Oh, something else just popped in. I was also shown last summer that I had taken my own life, and the way that I had done it was literally, it was, well, I took my life, you know, it was at my own hand, and I saw myself with the gun in my, and see, this is mainly in my right hand. I get a little bit in my left hand, but in my right hand, I held the gun to my temple and I pulled the trigger. And so now I'm seeing that connection, because I kind of suspect that the life that I abandoned my baby was the same life that I committed suicide, because I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the guilt of the abandoning, and then I couldn't handle the not knowing of what had happened to the baby, you know, like all this stuff I'm going through right now. So like right now is my opportunity to heal all this stuff that I was able to.
Who'd have thunk that a cat disappearing could possibly bring someone as enlightened as you are into this level of healing?
I know, he's my angel. I'm actually, yesterday I was like, wow, I saw how I was his angel, because he was starving when I took him in. I mean, and he was still a kitten, and I brought him back to life. And it was like, I'm like, is it a coincidence that once I got him to the point where, I mean, this cat was ravenous. And after about, a year of being with me, he was perfectly healthy, had grown into an adult, and actually got to the point of being the pickiest eater of all my cats. And I was having trouble feeding him because he was turning his nose up at everything. And then that's when he disappears. And I was like, wow, maybe I was just an angel that he needed at that point in time to food to survive. Now I completed my service with him, and he is gone. And then I saw that, wow, he's really my angel too, because his disappearance is bringing up all this stuff that I need to look at.
Powerful. And if you think back to that memory of abandoning your child, was there any kind of incarceration or being put into an institution or anything that happened? Are you aware of any of that?
I was not. It was very bizarre the way this particular experience was shown to me, and all I was given was that I left a baby at the curb. That's all I know.
Well, just listening to your language somewhere, and I wonder if there's something genetically, is there anyone in your family's history that you know of that's been put into a mental institution, and or was the result of abandoning that child where you went crazy and maybe ended up in that institution? Just hearing the language that goes around it, our speech is part of the healing process, and we'll touch into speech patterns oftentimes in doing the worksheet process that reflect experiences, events, sometimes genetic memories that need to be cleaned out.
Well, the only thing that pops into my mind is that there is a history, because it happened with myself and it happened with my father's sister, of there being no bond ever forming between the mother and the daughter, and there being this huge gulf that never got resolved. Like in the case of my aunt, who I never met because she left as soon as she was able to leave the house at the age of 18. She moved across the country, and she never, for the remainder of her mother's life or her brother, my father's life, ever contacted me again. And it's just like this huge rift. And I found out that what caused the rift between my mother and myself was exactly the same as what caused the rift between her and her mother, which was the father's insistence that the mother not hold or tend to the baby.
Yeah, that was a very common thing back then.
Yeah.
So notice what all you're processing at this point. That's huge stuff. And it sounds like perhaps that's some of the energy that is also being cleaned up in this forgiveness work that you need to do between you and your mom. And who knows what kind of results cleaning that up will bring in your world.
Yeah, I feel like that forgiveness is kind of complete as far as between my mother and myself. I really saw how all of the things that happened there were actually for my benefit, because I came in with such a for codependency, and she pretty much didn't allow that to even be a possibility with her. And it really pushed me to self-reliance. There, everyone in the family, because there was no one there could rely on. So it was pretty much forcing me into a place I needed to go in life.
So my offering is the antidote to codependence is not independence. The answer to codependence is interdependence, where we can be there for each other, but not out of compulsive, pained states, but rather intertwining our lives with others in the presence of love bringing forward the active presence of love. Not, oh, well, I learned I have to go off and do this on my own. That's more of the nobody's there for me. That's more of that early childhood event that needs to
Right.
be healed so that you can move into interdependent relationship where there is total connectedness, communication, and reliance on support with and for and from another human being, but where there is no hostility or fear involved, so that we get to truly live interdependent lives as we are designed to do. You know, we've all heard the saying, no man is an island. No person could possibly. I mean, if I had to do it all on my own, I'd have to know how to make shoes. I'd have to know how to make refrigerators and stoves and cars and I'd have to know. I can't do all of that. I have to be interdependent. But if I have hostility or fear in my interdependence, that's when I move into codependence. And so the antidote for codependence is really, truly arriving at a space where love is present and there's interdependence in my life with anyone and everyone that I connect with.
Yeah, I think I moved from one pole to another, you know, codependent to total independence, and neither of them, you know, because then I find that, you know, yeah, I'm trying to do everything myself. I'm not, you know, I don't have any, you know, I'm just alone. So
neither of them is healthy.
No, and so it's that interdependence. So okay. So I have...
Good breath. There. Did you catch that breath that just moved from you spontaneously?
Yeah.
Hey, when you go back and listen to this particular moment and just catch the breath that moved. That's the breath. That's the still point breath. That's where the breath moves, and that's where the healing is. That's where that veil of the unconscious is opened, and that unconscious content now is being released. That's exactly where it happens. That's the energy of it.
Okay.
And it just comes spontaneously. It's not something you can say, well, I'm going to breathe and that'll do it. It's where I'm energetically prepared to let that veil open in me, that barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious open. Forgiveness does that. The breath does that. And that breath that just moved is what moves the energy.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing now is that the first two goals that I need to cancel that I write down are really just the two poles that I was talking about. The first one is the need for someone to be there for me. The second one is the need to be able to handle this on my own.
Exactly. And then you know, variations on a theme. Again, when Yeshua said 77 times 70 times, there might be another dozen goals that will lead you to. Just watch as you cancel each one. Be very mindful of what moves in you and catch the subtlety of the thoughts that come. What's the next piece that I need to unwind here to free my whole physiology from that? And as far as on a physiological level, it sounds like there's some energy that needs to be moved. And, you know, there's a device you've probably heard us talk about before called an Avicen that is about opening microcirculation. And if you'd like, I'll contact you and we can arrange for you to try one out if you want to test one and see if it changes what's happening with your circulation.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of it. Susan has one, and she's mentioned it.
Right. Cool. Well, if you'd like, I'll give you a call. We're down. The show's going to cut us off in just a moment or so. Okay. And so if there's more process work to be done around this, let's start the show out with it tomorrow, and let's move to the next level. We'll hold the space and see full healing happening here.